Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about a mind shift in food production. So, changing how we think about farming from one that starts at re engineering land with new technologies to one that focuses on leveraging ecosystem services to achieve our food production goals. And I'm going to start with a story because this just came up with some of the farmers that I was talking to. They were having problems getting their crops pollinated because over the last few years, pollinator numbers had been tanking in their region. So we were laying out some options, things like planting hedgerows, diversifying cropping systems, reducing pesticide use. But the one thing that got everyone the most excited were pollination drones. They're these tiny, adorable machines that use hair and sticky gel to mimic bees, copters that drop massive amounts of pollen over a single crop, even bubble-making drones that use bubble machines to carry pollen to flowers. Pollination drones are cool. I bet most of you are wishing this was a talk about pollination drones now. But what stuck with me was that the solution that was most interesting to us didn't actually solve for the cause of declining pollinator numbers. Our brains are set up in this way where we're immediately drawn to cool new gadgets that treat the symptom of a crumbling ecosystem rather than identifying the flawed systems that got us here in the first place. And how we can repair the ecosystem breaks to get back to a healthy, resilient system. And ironically, the reason the farmers that I was talking to were seeing reduced pollinator numbers was because of another technological advancement, pesticides that were being sprayed in heavy doses to combat an invasive psyllid spreading devastating crop diseases. And I see the same perspectives when it comes to climate change in terms of reducing atmospheric carbon dioxide. From a technological perspective, there are some really innovative ideas like direct air capture, which uses a machine to suck carbon dioxide directly out of the air. And companies working on this estimate it could capture up to 5 billion metric tons of carbon per year. Pretty exciting, right? Investors think so too, with hundreds of millions of dollars in private investments. But what's interesting is that there's already a tool for carbon capture in our ecosystems with similar estimates of annual capture potential. Our soil. Soil is a critical sink for carbon. 80% of the world's terrestrial carbon is stored in soils. And with the exception of oceans, soils are the Earth's largest carbon sink. But agricultural soils have been vastly mismanaged, depleting carbon stores and releasing that carbon into the atmosphere. And there's been a lot less investment and dedication into transforming our agricultural system with regenerative techniques like biological soil amendments instead of synthetic fertilizer, crop rotations, and reduced tillage to use soil as a tool for carbon capture. And the reason that I'm bringing up food in the context of climate change isn't just because soils can help mitigate climate change. It's because fluctuating climatic systems are on a pathway to destroy our ability to grow food. Shifting precipitation patterns and more extreme heat throughout the year are going to lead to more intense flooding in some regions, and then droughts in others, tanking yields, and wiping out a lot of the most productive land that we have. And what's fascinating is that our precarious food system isn't just threatened by climate change, it's actually contributing a big chunk of it. The technology and cropping systems that were developed in the Green Revolution to boost our productivity, things like synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, and high-yield monocultures, basically everything that we're doing to feed our growing population, is destroying our ability to grow food in the future. So it's a bit of a delicate situation. And the question is, what kind of technological advancements do we need to give us some long-term food security in the face of climate change? And how can we build a pathway where those new strategies don't just lead us straight into another socio-environmental disaster? Can we transmute our current agricultural system into one where we're not always scrambling to come up with new inventions to undo the unintended side effects of our last advancement? Because as brilliant as our minds are, as advanced as our modeling systems get, The global ecosystem is so complex that there's no way we can really know for certain the full implications of any large-scale disruption, even if that intervention has the intent of environmental sustainability, of climate stability. And believe me, with 40% of the world's land used for food production, agriculture is a huge disruption. So, as we look ahead to new climate mitigation tools, we should be solving for finding ways to farm that complement the equilibrium of our natural systems without tanking yields and while still supporting farmer livelihoods. And that might mean scrapping or at least changing some of the faulty old tech that got us here in the first place. I work in organic systems, which has its ideals rooted in developing a functioning farm ecosystem, and I have a background in agroecology, which views farmlands as complex webs of ecological interactions. But honestly, this idea isn't limited to a single farming system. I'm not trying to promote a specific way to grow food, but a way to think. A way to look at challenges that we're faced with pre and post Farmgate with the goal of integrating anthropogenic practices into a functioning ecosystem. And that mindset transcends farming systems. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to cancel tiny drones and direct air capture, because we're going to have to use all the tools in our toolbox. Plus, there are plenty of cutting-edge developments that do fit within an ecological mindset. Sensors that will allow us to reduce water and pesticide use, drones that will track pests and pathogens on a fine scale. But we can't forget that the climate stability that we've enjoyed over the last 11,000 years was thanks to a careful ecological balance. So let's think of our new technology as amplifiers for enabling food production within this complex natural setting. So what am I asking you to do? I'm asking you to stop and think, to integrate ecology into every decision you make, every piece of information you analyze, while you're problem solving at work, while you're reading the news, while you're grocery shopping. And I know that shifting our thinking to prioritize a functioning ecosystem sounds simple, but changing the innate problem solving structure that's been built into our brains is going to take a lot of effort. But the implications for our planet are innumerable. We really have the potential to create a future where we're not constantly living in fear of a global ecological collapse. So we might not be able to engineer our way out of all of our problems, but if we go into problem solving with the goal of finding a way to live, to thrive within Earth's functioning ecosystem, will be a lot closer to long-term climate health than our current cycle of innovation-mediated disturbance.